Unlocking the archive, the latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net.
So I used to have this therapist who told me that she had a therapist who was psychic.
In 2021, film director and actor Kaveh Zahedi recorded a podcast every day for a year called 365 Stories I Want to Tell You Before We Both Die. It features stories from his life. Now, producer Leon Nafak and Prologue Projects are making the whole year's stories available as a paid podcast. They're letting people pick their price too, working with a supporting cast. And quite neatly, a week's worth of stories remain available in the free feed. The stories originally published this week last year. The shows change daily, starting over at the beginning of each year. We're told they'll continue doing this forever until we all die or become millionaires. Are you selling access to your show? The free ride for Spotify's paid podcast subscription service is coming to an end. In Spotify's earnings call yesterday, Daniel Ek said that from 2023, the company will take a 5% cut plus payment costs. Apple Podcasts takes 30%, including them. And YouTube has turned on tipping for all eligible creators in 68 countries around the world. YouTube also takes a 30% cut. With the excitement earlier on this week about Spotify's proprietary video podcasts, Substack quietly released video on their platform back at the end of January, we're told, by Podland's Sam Sethi. How is podcasting changing in Ukraine since the war began, and how will it affect the Ukrainian podcast market? Dmytro Palchikov is production director of the Ukrainians audio, and he spoke to iZone Media in an English article about how his team has adapted. We'll link to that today from our show notes and our newsletter. The New York Festival's Radio Awards, which also contains recognition for podcasts, announced their winners. Overall, more awards were won by UK companies than those in the US. Daryl Battaglia from Triton Digital has joined Brian Barletta for a deep dive into Triton Digital's new podcast metrics tool, which they developed working with Signal Hill Insights. ESPN anchor Sage Steele has sued ESPN and its parent company Walt Disney after the company suspended her for questioning ESPN's COVID-19 vaccination mandate and criticizing former President Barack Obama in a podcast interview on Uncut with Jay Cutler. She claims a violation of freedom of speech. Another member of the UK's royal family is to host a podcast. Princess Eugenie is to host Floodlight, a podcast for the anti-slavery collective. She's currently 12th in line to the throne. The New York Times focuses on the use of podcasts to expand the reach of smaller museums. And another popular podcast has gone exclusive. Hamish and Andy's Remembering Project has a new season starting today, now exclusive to the Listener app. The show did 100,000 downloads in March, making it number 71 in Australian-made shows in the Australian podcast ranker. It's a spin-off of the Hamish and Andy show, which is number one, with 2.2 million downloads in March. There are no such plans to make that one exclusive. And in podcast news, Mood Ring is new from 8pm Studios today, a new weekly podcast from author and journalist Anne Borge. It launches just ahead of Mental Health Awareness Month and shares practical and creative ways to improve our lives, with each episode focusing on one new way we can cope with our feelings, our baggage, or the world around us. And in Podland later today, we hear from Neil Modi on Headliner's future plans and from Tom Billington on the podcast show 2022 in London, which takes place next month. Co-host Sam Sethi also breaks the news that he's bought a big red bus. You'll find that at podland.news. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net. And now, no trailers.